All right, so let's get right into it. On September 3rd, Beijing is putting on this huge military parade. But, the story behind all that spectacle? It's way more complicated than you might think.
So, on the surface, this is all about commemorating history. The official line is that the parade marks the 80th anniversary of, and here's the full name, the victory of the Chinese People's War of Resistance against Japanese aggression, which is, their term for the end of World War II.
And just so we're clear, this is not some small-time event. Get this, rehearsals have had up to 40,000 people involved. I mean, we're talking about something on an absolutely massive scale. So is this really just about remembering the past? Or is it a powerful message aimed squarely at the future? That's what we're going to break down here. What is this parade really all about? Okay, first up, let's look at the official story, the narrative that's coming straight out of Beijing. So, according to the official line, the date itself is a big deal. September 3rd was chosen as Victory Day way back in 1945, right after Japan's formal surrender on that U.S. battleship. So what's the message they're trying to send? Well, interestingly, a state-affiliated media outlet called NetEase basically spelled it out for us. They've laid out 3 key signals this whole thing is supposed to communicate to the world. And here's the trifecta. First, flex your muscles to warn off anyone with, quote, ulterior motives. Second, revisit history to remind everyone of China's role and sacrifices in World War II. And third, and this is where it gets interesting, a call for peace. So you've got this mix of deterrence, history, and peace. That's the official framing right there.
Okay, but let's peel back that official layer. Because Western analysts, they're looking at something totally different. They're focused on the actual hardware that's going to be rolling down the street.
Yeah, check this out. Leaked photos from the rehearsals are already showing at least 4 new kinds of Eagle Strike anti-ship missiles. And we're talking about missiles that fly at supersonic and even hypersonic speeds. Just to put that in perspective, hypersonic is more than 5 times the speed of sound. That makes these things almost impossible to stop.
And these aren't just for parading around, They are a key part of this military strategy called A2/AD, which stands for Anti-Access/Area Denial. The whole idea is to create a no-go zone for an adversary. And let's be blunt, it's specifically designed to counter the U.S. Navy in the region, especially if a conflict ever broke out over Taiwan.
But wait, there's more. It's not just about missiles. They've also spotted at least 6 of these giant drone submarines, they call them XULUVs, in the parade rehearsals. Which of course begs the question, what are these things for? What's the strategy here? Well, the thinking among analysts is that these are a direct answer to a U.S. system called the Fishhook Network. Think of Fishhook as a massive underwater tripwire, a grid of sensors designed to track Chinese submarines. So the theory is these new drones could be sent out to hunt for and maybe even disable that network, taking away a huge U.S. advantage in that silent undersea chess game. So you've got all this advanced military tech on full display. How's the rest of the world reacting to all this?
Well, the guest list tells a really interesting story. You've got leaders like Vladimir Putin from Russia confirmed, and a whole host of leaders from Southeast Asia are expected to be there. Analysts are saying their attendance is a way of giving face to Beijing, showing respect and keeping those diplomatic channels open and friendly.
And this isn't exactly a new thing. If you look back at the last big parade like this in 2015, a lot of Western leaders, including Japan's prime minister at the time, decided to skip it. And it looks like we're seeing a repeat. Western nations are once again watching from a distance, pretty concerned about what the show of force really means.
But here's a crucial pivot. The world is watching, for sure, but maybe the most important audience for this parade is actually inside China. And when you look there, you see that people are really, really divided on this.
You have political commentators like Wang Jian who are basically saying, forget foreign policy, this isn't about the US or Japan. They see it as a purely domestic power play. A political show for Xi Jinping to project strength and stability, especially with all the talk about internal challenges and a shaky economy.
But then, if you dive into Chinese social media, into the online chatter, you get a completely different vibe, a much more cynical take from everyday people.
So you have this official story of national pride and strength, but online you see a lot of frustration. People are using idioms that translate to things like wasting money and manpower. They're calling it self-entertainment, basically a show just for the government's own sake. Not to mention all the complaints about traffic, security checks, and the feeling that, hey, maybe this money could be used for something a little more useful, like public welfare. So where does that leave us? You've got this single event with so many different, competing meanings. Is it a celebration of peace that's full of weapons of war? Is it a message for the world, or is it really a performance for a domestic audience?
It seems to be all of those things at once.
And that brings us to the final big question. When you strip everything else away, in this massive display of power, history, and technology, what is the one single thing that the world and the people of China are truly meant to see? That's the real question to think about, long after the parade is over.